The sky should have been blue that morning. But over Europe, it shimmered with a strange metallic glow. As if someone had polished the heavens with silver. German pilots were the first to notice it. They squinted into the sunlight, confused, then alarmed. These were not bombers. These were not slow, predictable targets. They were something faster. Smoother. Deadlier. A new shape sliced through the clouds, leaving streaks of light in its wake. Wings glinted. Engines roared. And in that instant, the Luftwaffe realized something terrifying. The Americans had brought a new predator into the sky. For months, Allied crews had died helplessly, their bombers torn apart before reaching home. But today, something had changed. Today, the hunters were about to become the hunted. This was the moment the sky turned silver. And the war in the air would never be the same. Before that silver morning, the air war over Europe was a brutal gamble. Allied bombers flew deep into enemy territory with almost no protection, climbing into skies ruled by the Luftwaffe. Every mission felt like a slow march into a storm, one that countless crews never returned from. B-17s and B-24s thundered across the continent, carrying the weight of a nation's hopes, yet their greatest weakness was painfully clear: they could not defend themselves all the way to their targets. Fighter escorts could only accompany them for part of the journey before fuel ran out, leaving the bombers exposed, alone, and easy prey. German fighters knew exactly when that moment came. They waited. They pounced. They tore through formation after formation with terrifying efficiency. The Allies needed more than courage. They needed a miracle, something fast enough to chase the enemy, strong enough to survive long missions, and agile enough to dominate the skies. Whispers began circulating across airfields and briefing rooms. Engineers had been experimenting with a new machine, sleek, long-legged, almost too ambitious for its time. No one knew if it would arrive in time. But when it finally did, the war's deadliest battlefield, the sky, would never look the same again. In the early years of the air war, the balance of power seemed brutally fixed. Germany controlled the skies over Europe with a deadly precision that terrified even experienced pilots. Their fighters, Bf-109s and Fw-190s, operated with confidence, speed, and home field advantage. They could strike swiftly, refuel easily, and return to battle before the exhausted Allied escorts even made it halfway home. The Americans, despite their industrial might, faced a tactical nightmare. Their bombers were powerful machines with heavy defensive guns, but they were never designed to fight alone. They were built to survive attacks, not to win dogfights. Every long-range mission felt like a tragic equation. The farther they flew, the more men they lost. Inside briefing rooms across England, bomber crews listened to the same grim instructions. Fighter escorts will leave you at this point. After that, you're on your own. Silence always followed, heavy, resigned, and filled with dread. Pilots saw firsthand what happened beyond that invisible line in the sky. German interceptors waited like wolves at the edge of a forest. They swarmed the formation, attacking from the front, from above, from the sun, tearing open bombers with ruthless efficiency. Men were lost in seconds. Parachutes dotted the sky like tiny, desperate hopes. Commanders knew this couldn't continue. Every mission drained morale. Every loss weakened the Allied campaign. Engineers and strategists were pushed to the edge, searching for a solution that seemed almost impossible. A fighter that could escort bombers from England to Germany, and back. Dozens of designs were tested. Some were too slow, others lacked range, and a few were simply too fragile to survive the harsh realities of war. But one prototype, sleek, unusual, and promising, began drawing whispers. It had a long range. It had blistering speed. It looked nothing like the fighters before it. Still, doubts lingered. Could a single aircraft change the balance of the air war? Could it protect hundreds of bombers across hundreds of miles? Could it truly challenge the Luftwaffe in their own domain? For many, it felt like a fantasy. But a small group of pilots and engineers believed otherwise. They believed they were on the brink of creating something extraordinary, a machine that would break the Luftwaffe's dominance and turn the hunters into the hunted. They didn't know it yet. But the answer was already warming up on the runway. The first time the P-51 Mustang arrived on a European airfield, most pilots didn't know what to make of it. It looked almost too elegant for war, its wings swept in a gentle curve, its nose long and perfectly shaped, its silver body catching every glint of sunlight. Mechanics paused just to stare. Pilots walked around it slowly, as if studying a predator they had never seen before. But behind that beauty was something far more important, power and endurance unlike anything the Allies had ever fielded. The secret was under the hood, the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine. Once installed, everything changed. The aircraft didn't just fly. It leapt. Test flights stunned commanders. The Mustang climbed faster, flew farther, turned sharper, and dove with deadly purpose. A pilot could push it to the edge and it would ask for more. Still, no one fully understood what this machine would do to the war, until the first long-range escort mission launched. Dawn broke over the English countryside as rows of Mustangs revved their engines, their silver bodies glowing faintly in the cold morning light. The mission was simple but historically massive: escort bombers all the way to their target in Germany and bring them home alive. It had never been done before. The bombers lifted off first, heavy and slow. Then came the Mustangs, sleek spears slicing into the sky. They climbed, gathered formation, and settled into escort positions like guardians taking their posts. For the first time, bomber crews looked out their windows and saw fighters staying with them, mile after mile. Across the continent, German radar stations picked up the massive formation. Phones rang. Alarms sounded. Luftwaffe pilots rushed to their aircraft with the confidence of men who had done this 100 times before. They expected the usual moment, the point where American fighters turned back, leaving their bombers exposed. But today, something was different. As German fighters approached, they saw shapes beside the bombers, shapes they did not recognize. Sleek, silver machines with long wings and a fierce stance. Pilots blinked in confusion. This wasn't a Thunderbolt. This wasn't a Spitfire. Then they saw the nose, sharp, predatory. The glow of sunlight reflecting off polished metal. The unmistakable hum of the Merlin engine. The Mustangs didn't wait to be attacked. They charged. The moment they broke formation and dove toward the Luftwaffe, everything changed. German pilots, used to easy prey, suddenly found fast, aggressive escorts meeting them head-on. The hunters of Europe were no longer alone in the sky. For the first time in years, Allied bombers watched something miraculous happen. The enemy was turning away. The balance of the air war was beginning to shift, and it had only just begun. The true test of the Mustang came minutes later, when the Luftwaffe regrouped and surged back into the fight. High above the bombers, the sky twisted into chaos, trails of exhaust, flashes of sunlight, and the unmistakable roar of engines pushed to their limits. German pilots expected another routine interception. What they encountered instead was a revelation. Captain James Howell, one of the Mustang escorts, spotted the first wave diving in from the sun. In older missions, he would have had seconds to react before the bombers were torn apart. But today, he wasn't watching helplessly. He pushed his throttle forward, and the Mustang surged ahead with a violent burst of power. The aircraft didn't just move. It lunged, like it wanted the fight. Howell rolled into a dive, feeling the controls respond with frightening precision. The Mustang cut through the air faster than anything he had ever flown. He lined up behind an FW-190 that was moments away from firing on AB-17. The German pilot glanced back. And the shock on his face said everything. He had never seen a fighter this close, this fast, this deep into German-controlled sky. Before he could react, Howell squeezed the trigger. A burst of .50 caliber fire shredded across the enemy fighter's wings. Flames erupted. The FW-190 spiraled downward, disappearing into the thick clouds below. It was the first kill of the mission. But it wouldn't be the last. All across the formation, the Mustangs struck with the same ruthless efficiency. They dove from above, climbed from below, circled around like metallic predators guarding their flock. The bombers, once left alone and terrified, watched the sky transform into a shield of silver flashes. Luftwaffe pilots tried to adapt. Some attempted high-speed slashing attacks. Others tried drawing the Mustangs away. But the P-51's speed and range made old tactics useless. No matter where the Germans turned, a Mustang was already there, waiting. At one point, a group of B-17 crewmen stared from their gun positions in disbelief. Instead of firing desperately at incoming fighters, they saw Mustangs tearing through enemy formations before the bombers were even threatened. One turret gunner later said, "For the first time, we weren't praying. We were cheering." By midday, the reality became undeniable. The Luftwaffe had lost control of its sky. The Mustangs didn't just escort the bombers. They dominated the battlefield, pushing farther, striking harder, and refusing to break formation. Every pilot could feel it, a historic shift happening in real time. When the bombers turned for home, the Mustangs were still with them. Fresh, fierce, and fearless. The Germans watched, stunned, as the silver fighters escorted the entire formation out of Germany, something that had never happened before. The aftermath of that first full escort mission rippled across Europe like a shockwave. For years, the Luftwaffe had dominated the skies, confident that American bombers would always be vulnerable once their escorts turned back. But the Mustangs shattered that certainty in a single day. When the surviving German pilots returned to their airfields, they stepped out of their cockpits in stunned silence. Their commanders demanded explanations, but the truth was something they struggled to admit. A new aircraft had entered the war. And it was better than anything they had. Reports described the same impossible traits. Unmatched speed, deadly accuracy, and the unnerving ability to chase German fighters deep into their own territory. For the first time, German pilots found themselves unable to dictate the battle. Instead of hunting bombers, they were fighting desperately just to survive. Across the Channel, Allied commanders studied their mission results with disbelief. Bomber losses had dropped dramatically. Fighter survivors returned with tales of dominance instead of desperation. Crews who once boarded their aircraft with dread now carried something unfamiliar: hope. High command quickly realized what this meant. The Mustang wasn't just another fighter. It was a strategic weapon, one that could change the course of the entire air campaign. More Mustangs were ordered. More pilots were trained. And every new squadron brought the same transformation to the battlefield. As P-51s began filling the skies, the German war machine faced a crippling new reality. Their veteran pilots, already stretched thin, were forced into constant combat against an enemy that could outrun, outclimb, and outfight them. Losses mounted. Morale sank. The once feared Luftwaffe was being crushed from above. The silver wings of the Mustang didn't just escort bombers. They opened the door for deep strategic strikes that had once been impossible. Factories, fuel depots, rail lines, targets that had been out of reach were suddenly within arm's length of the Allies. The tide of the air war had turned. And Europe could feel it. Among the many Mustang pilots who flew that first historic mission, one man's story quietly captured the hearts of those who heard it. Lieutenant Daniel Mercer was young, barely 22, yet he carried the weight of dozens of missions where he had watched bomber crews die helplessly. He had seen aircraft burn, men jump, and formations fall apart. Every loss carved another line into his memory. But on this day, flying his new P-51 for the first time in combat, something shifted inside him. During the mission's fiercest moment, Mercer spotted a lone B-17 drifting out of formation, engines failing, a trail of smoke marking its slow descent. 3 German fighters were closing in, ready to finish the kill. Without hesitation, Mercer broke from his position and dove toward them. The Mustang screamed as he pushed it past its limits. Tracers lit the air. The Germans scattered, surprised by the sudden fury of the Silver Predator. For a moment, everything slowed. Mercer pulled alongside the damaged bomber, matching its speed, keeping watch like a silent guardian. Inside, exhausted crewmen stared back at him. No words were exchanged, but their expressions said enough. They were still alive because he was there. Mercer escorted them until they reached friendly skies. That night, he wrote only one line in his journal. "Today, the sky finally fought for us." When historians look back on the air war over Europe, they often describe a single turning point, not a battle, not a strategy, but a moment when the sky itself seemed to change sides. That moment was the arrival of the P-51 Mustang. Before the Mustang, the air war was a desperate struggle for survival. After it, the Allies carried something far more powerful than ammunition or fuel, the certainty that victory was finally within reach. The Silver Fighters became symbols of hope, streaking above bomber formations like guardians carved from sunlight. For the Luftwaffe, it marked the beginning of the end. Their seasoned aces, once untouchable, now faced an enemy that could match and surpass their skill. Their confidence faded. Their dominance crumbled. The sky over Europe, once ruled by German wings, now echoed with the thunder of American engines. But beyond the tactics, beyond the victories, lies a deeper truth. The Mustang was not just a machine, it was a promise. A promise to every pilot who lifted off in fear, to every crew who wondered if they would return home, and to every nation waiting for the tide to turn. On that day, when sunlight flashed across polished aluminum and the sky turned silver, the war changed forever. The air belonged to the Allies. And the future, finally, felt possible. The story of the P-51 Mustang is more than a chapter in military history. It is a reminder of how innovation, courage, and determination can change the fate of a war. If you felt the power of this moment, imagine the countless untold stories still hidden within the shadows of World War II. Thank you for watching. If you want more cinematic journeys into the battles, machines, and heroes that shaped our world, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. Your support helps these forgotten stories rise into the light once more. See you in the next tale of World War II.